Welcome to Crafty and New, where we do crafting on a budget. Today's video, I'm bringing to you some Thanksgiving tier tray DIYs. Let's get into it. This first project, you can see you're going to need a variety of things. I'm not going to really explain everything you're going to need. You can see it all right here. Just whatever scraps you have. I used what scraps I had. And then this is the paint. I'm going to be using some nutmeg brown. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove this tin from the sign. That's the only thing I wanted that sign for. And then I'm going to take this wooden house that Dollar Tree is now selling and some scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby. And I'm just going to Mod Podge the scrapbook paper onto the house. Now once I have the paper Mod Podged onto the house, I'm just going to take my brayer and I'm going to roll out any wrinkles. And this also helps the paper adhere to the house better. And then I'm going to go over it with another coat of Mod Podge. Now once that Mod Podge is dried, I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut off all the excess. Now I'm going to take this piece of wood that I have, it's just a paint stir stick, and I'm going to measure out two roof eaves. And you can see how I'm measuring it there. I want them to kind of overlap the house on both sides, front and back. So I'm going to draw a line right down the middle, and I'm going to take my saw and we're just going to cut that. So I'm going to cut off the length that I need, and then I'm going to also cut that into half. You can see here what I'm doing. It's probably easier to understand by watching than it is me explaining. So there's what you should end up with. And then once I have that cut, now I'm going to cut another piece of wood and I'm going to cut that to the same length as the house because that's going to go on the bottom. Then I'm just going to take my nutmeg brown and I'm going to paint all of my wood pieces, and then I'm going to wipe off any excess paint so it can be like a stain. Now once I have all three pieces painted, I'm also going to paint the edge of my house the same color. And then once I have all that painted, we're going to start gluing this house together. So you can see the two pieces that I cut, I just glued them on top as the eaves of the roof. And I'm sorry I didn't get the footage in here, I don't know where it cut away to. And so now I'm going to take this tin and I'm also going to measure and I'm going to cut that to fit the top of the roof because I want this to be a tin roof. So you're going to need some tin snips for this, and be very careful because that can be pretty sharp. And you can see how I measured and cut, and now I'm just going to hot glue those on to the roof of the house. And you can see there what it should look like after you get done hot gluing it together. Ta-da! We've got a tin roof. Now I'm going to take this leaf that I actually used my Cricut to cut out, and I'm just going to Mod Podge that onto the front of the house. I just found it in Cricut Design Space. I just typed in maple leaf. And I used heavy duty cardstock, and I'm really digging this color this year. It's kind of like a wine. And you'll notice that's the theme throughout this tier tray. Now I'm going to take that piece of wood that we cut to the length of the house, and we're going to glue that down at the bottom of the house. And then I'm just going to go over that leaf with some Mod Podge. Now I'm taking these little brass fasteners that you can get from the Dollar Tree. I didn't have any buttons or anything, so this is the only thing I could think of using because I want to kind of use these as like a button. And I'm just going to snip off those fasteners, and we're going to paint those and hot glue them on to the bottom of the house. You'll see. And I've also, with the paint I wanted to use, I mixed some of that nutmeg brown in with the black, and that's the color we're going to paint these fasteners. And you can see how we're going to hot glue those onto that piece of board. We're just going to have 4 of those, 1 in each corner. Like I said, you can skip this step if you have buttons or something else that you can use, but this was all that I had on my stash, so this is what I had to come up with. And now I'm taking that same black and brown mixture, and I'm just going to go over my entire piece with it. Now I'm going to take these rub-on transfers, and I'm going to cut out the letters to spell Fall Vibes, and then I'm just going to transfer those onto that wood piece. And there's what it should look like. And now I'm going to take this bow I had in my stash. I mean, if you don't have an already made bow, you can make one. And I'm just going to hot glue it to the top of the roof, and that's going to make this project complete. Now this next project is so easy, I almost didn't want to put it in here. Basically you just get one of these wooden arrows from the Dollar Tree. Again, I'm using that favorite paint that I like to use. It's like a wine tapestry or wine red or Merlot, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to paint the arrow. And then I got on my Cricut and I printed out Pumpkin Patch, and then I printed out another printable that says Corn Maze, Hay Rides, and Cider. I attached that to the arrow, and that makes this project complete. Now for our next project, I'm going to make a 3-dimensional pumpkin. So I'm going to take one of these pumpkins off this hanging thing I got from the Dollar Tree. And then I'm using another pumpkin out of this big pack of pumpkins I bought off of Amazon, which I'll put that link in the description box below. And you're actually going to need 2 of these because we're going to cut one of them up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm just going to cut off the sides of this pumpkin. I just want 2 sides, so I'm going to cut off both of them. And then we're going to use our X-Acto knife and our sander, and we're going to get them to match. This is hard to explain, but you'll see. Just watch the video and enjoy. Love you guys.
And every occasion I whisper your name. I'm happy to hear that you'll still be around. I thought you were leaving without a sound. In my little world you are.
So you can see here how we cut off the sides of the pumpkin, and now I'm just taking my X-Acto knife and I'm just kind of making them even. So I'm cutting off any excess, and there you can see we've got 2 even halves to make a hole. Then I'm going to take this other pumpkin and I'm just going to cut off the stem because we're not going to need that.
In this world I'll be right by your side.
And then we're going to take the larger pumpkin that we took off the Dollar Tree sign, and we're going to glue on the wooden pumpkin that we cut, the one that we cut the stem off of, and then we're going to take that half. Oh, but first I tricked you. Oh my gosh, I just realized I kind of edited all this out of order. Now I'm going to take this scrap paper that I got out of a scrapbooking pack, which I do not remember what it was called, or it was a fall scrapbook pack. I would have gotten it from Michael's. And I'm going to cut the piece, I'm going to cut off a piece, and we're going to Mod Podge that onto this bigger pumpkin. And this voiceover just went all to hell. So I apologize. Just enjoy the video. Oh my goodness. So now while that's drying, I'm going to go back to the halves again, and we're going to sand those down so that there's no rough edges, and it'll be easier to glue together, and it'll look a little more like it's a whole piece. I'm going to paint those with my red. This is that wine red again. Like I said, you're going to notice a color theme throughout this video. And while those are drying, we're going to paint our other pumpkin, the one we cut the stem off of, pumpkin orange. And I'm using Waverly chalk paint.
In this world I'll be right by your side.
Now once everything is dried and the Mod Podge is dried, we're going to cut off any excess paper, and then we're just going to sand that down so that it looks like it's part of the pumpkin. Basically going to sand off any excess paper off the pumpkin because it's easier to do than it is to try to get in there with your knife. I promise I will try to get better at doing these voiceovers. My brain tends to think faster than I can talk, so sometimes I get a little ahead of myself. Now I'm going to take this nutmeg brown and I'm just going to paint the stem, and then I'm going to dry brush over the pumpkin and the sides with it. Now using some wood glue, I'm going to adhere the wooden pumpkin that we painted orange down onto the pumpkin with the scrap paper.
I wanna jump around when I think about yesterday. Your smile, your style so fly, my oh my. As time stood still, I got the urge to still.
And now I'm going to glue the two halves on top of the orange pumpkin using some wood glue and hot glue.
Just a little bit. Oh, there must be gold on those lips.
And once I have all that glued together, I'm just going to dry brush over it all again using the nutmeg brown paint.
Oh, there must be gold on those lips and honey on those fingertips. Oh, we could be birds discovering the world.
Now I'm just going to take some jute twine and make me a ribbon, and I'm going to cut off some of this pitberry garland. As you can see, I tried to get creative there and showed you that like in a snap, it was all ready for me. I'm just going to glue my bow down onto the stem with some tails, and then I'm going to glue in the pitberry, and then we're going to move on to make a stand for the back using some tower tumbling blocks. And once we have that, that will make this project complete.
Honey on those fingertips. I promise you, oh, there must be gold on those lips and honey on those fingertips. I promise you, I promise you.
For our next project, I have another scrap piece of wood that I got from Dollar Tree. I don't know if you guys realize this, but Dollar Tree is now selling wood pieces, which I don't really know if it's a bargain or not, because you're still paying $1 for this little slice of wood. So, I mean, it's just easy to get if you need it. So I'm just going to sand down because it is rough, and I'm going to use this mocha brown paint, and I'm going to paint both sides of this. Now I'm also going to use like a little stencil. I actually got this out of my scraps. I used this in last year's Thanksgiving DIY. So if you want to see that video, just click on the iCard above, and I save everything. So I'm just going to use this as a stencil, and I'm using that wine red again. I'm going to just stencil on the leaf onto my piece of wood. And there you have it. Scraps do come in handy. Then once that dries, I'm going to go over it with some Mod Podge, because I'm going to use a Cricut transfer, and I find that going over paint with Mod Podge helps keep from pulling up the paint when you're transferring it. And you can see here I just used my Cricut Design Space and printed out on my orange paper Nuts for Fall. And then once I have that transferred on, I'm going to sand this up because it's a little too shiny for me. The Mod Podge, it was supposed to be matte, but I don't know, sometimes it comes off shiny. So I just used my sandpaper and I just sanded that down. And now I'm just going to take some of this jute twine, I'm just going to wrap around on one end and glue that down. And I'm also going to use some of that pitberry garland that we've been using and wrap it around. And then we're going to use some Jenga blocks to make a little stand. And that makes that project complete. So for our next project, this is a salad dressing jar that I reused. I peeled off all the labels and washed it out. You're going to need some florals and then some burlap ribbon that I'm using. And all I want from this is the pumpkin, the smaller pumpkin. So what I did, what I didn't get on video, is I just glued the orange burlap ribbon onto the jar. And now I'm taking the brown burlap ribbon and measured out the width of the jar, and then I cut that in half because I'm going to glue that over the orange ribbon. And then once I have all that glued on, I'm going to take some jute twine, I'm going to wrap around my fingers, and I'm going to make myself my fringed bows. I love making these. It's not your typical bow. I'll wrap it around my fingers a few times, I'll tie it in a knot so that it has the bow, and then I cut the bow in half so it has fringes. Does that make sense? You can see what I'm doing. I don't know what it is about these bows, but I just love this look, and I do this a lot if you've noticed in some of my other videos. And then once I have the bow made, I attach some pitberry to that, and now I've decided that I needed some jute twine around the top so that I could attach my bow and pitberry to the jute twine instead of gluing it to the jar. And I'm taking some more of this tapestry red, whatever you want to call it, and I'm just going to paint that pumpkin, but I'm going to paint the side that is, I'm painting both sides, but the side that I want showing I found looks so nice is the side that had the paper on it. You can see the lines of the pumpkin still came through the red, so I only went over it with one coat so that I didn't have to draw my lines on the pumpkin. And you'll see what it looks like as soon as it dries here. And again, I'm just going to attach the bow and the pitberry to the top of the jar. And then you're just going to add your floral arrangements. This is going to depend on your taste and how you want it. And I just decided to use some fall colors, and that makes this project complete. And you can see on the pumpkin how you can still see the lines after I painted it. That's why I painted the side that had the paper still on it. Now for our next project, you're just going to need 3 blocks. You can get these from Dollar Tree. I ordered a big pack of them on Amazon, and I'm going to use brown, woodland green, and my red, and I'm going to paint each block a different color. Then I went on to my Cricut and I printed out a turkey, a piece of pie, which kind of looks like a Christmas tree, but I promise it's a piece of pie, and the word gobble, and I'm just going to transfer those onto my blocks. So there's the turkey done, and then I'm just going to transfer the other 2. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going back over these blocks with an opposing colored paint. So on the brown one, I'm going to go over it with the red. Basically, I'm using the Cricut printables as stencils, because I also used, when I did print these out, I used removable vinyl so that I could easily peel these off. And then once all that's dry, I'm just going to peel off the transfer, or the sticker. And then you'll be able to see the underlying color. If you're new to my channel, I just want to remind everybody to subscribe. I would love to have you as a member of our family. And if you are new and you're returning, please remember to check that notification bell, because apparently some of you aren't getting notifications that I've uploaded new videos. And I hope you all like and enjoy my videos, and if you do, please give me a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. So there's the blocks after I've peeled off all the stickers. And that makes this project complete. For our next project, I'm using some Crafter Square wood, and then another one of these pumpkins from Amazon. And again, I'm using the mocha brown, and I'm going to paint that long piece of wood my mocha brown. And I'm going to paint both sides of this. Then I'm going to paint the pumpkin in the Waverly Chalk Paint Pumpkin Orange. And again, we're going to do both sides. And now what I want to do is I just want to cut some slices through this pumpkin to kind of make it look a little more dimensional, I guess. So I'm just going to take my X-Acto knife and, being very careful, you're just going to slice some lines through the pumpkin to kind of go along where the curves are of the pumpkin. And then I'm going to take some jute twine and I'm going to wrap around the stem to kind of cover that up. I'm going to take my nutmeg brown and I'm just going to dry brush over my pumpkin to bring out those rough ridges that we cut into the pumpkin. Now you can see what it looks like after we cut those lines into it. And then I'm just going to use this transfer that I got off Cricut Design Space that says Happy Thanksgiving. And I'm going to put that on the left side of the wood piece. And then I'm only going to put hot glue on half the pumpkin because the other half will be overlapping the wood piece, and we're just going to glue that down onto the right side. And then once that's done, again I'm using some tumbling blocks and I'm going to make a stand, and that's going to make this project complete. Next project, I'm using one of these wooden rounds, again from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to cut off the string and the tags. And then out of the scrapbook pack, again I got from Michael's, I'm going to use this Oh So Thankful, and I'm going to cut it out to the size of the circle and use some Mod Podge and attach it to the circle. Actually, I didn't use Mod Podge on this, I used glue. And you can see I am using my Elmer's glue, and I'm just going to smear glue all over the wood piece and attach the scrapbook paper. After that dries, I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut all the way around the circle any of the excess paper. And I like doing this after the Mod Podge because it's so much easier to cut and remove. And then again, using that same line red, I'm going to paint the edge of the circle with this. And then I'm going to dry brush over the front of it. Now I understand these colors may not be some people's colors, but you can see how pretty that turned out, and I absolutely love it. Now for our next project, I'm using this woodland green, and again, Dollar Tree wood piece. It's a wood square, and I'm just going to give this a good coat. I didn't use 2 coats because I like the natural wood showing through. Then I went on Cricut and printed out this Gobble Till You Wobble printable, and I'm just going to transfer that onto my wood piece. Then I'm going to go around the bottom with some jute twine, and we're going to make a stand out of tire tumbling blocks, and that'll make this project complete. Super easy. You guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I've been scatterbrained using today, but you know, it happens. I've been having these really bad fog days. I call them fog days. And I just hope you guys can understand how sometimes it's hard for words to come to me when I have these days. And yeah, so anyways, moving on. So you can see now, after everything is done, I put my tier tray together, and this is what my beautiful Thanksgiving tier tray looks like. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a big thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that notification bell and subscribe to my channel so that you guys can see all of my future videos. I've got some Christmas videos coming. I got a few more Thanksgiving DIYs, so you're not going to want to miss them. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.